Hey, so it's been a little more than 2 weeks if I finish editing this in time. Now, technically, I'm not late because if you remember in my return video, I did say I had planned to upload 1 time per week on my main channel, which is this one, or my gaming channel. Last week, I uploaded a Street Fighter video. Check that out if you want. I really appreciate both channels' engagement, and it might not seem like a lot to most people, but to me, especially considering I was gone for a long period of time, very inconsistent. And again, thank you so much for all the support on the Katera video. The creator actually commented, Lukman Ali, shout out to him. I'm glad he was a good sport about it because I really worried about coming off too harsh when I really did love what I was watching. That being said, y'all ain't come here for that. Y'all came for a goddamn movie review, and a goddamn movie review you're gonna get. Sorry, we didn't have the budget for another edit. I swear my head gets bigger every week. Good God, this is compressing me. Anyways, Nollywood films. Nollywood films are a genre of movies created by and for Nigerian folks, typically utilizing a piece of video equipment called a nolly. And that's why it's called that, which is funny because I thought it was just like Hollywood with an N for Nigeria. The lower budget ones are widely known for their humorous plot points and interesting special effects, and I have never had the pleasure of watching one, low budget or otherwise, until today. In the last video, it was African films. This week, it's Nollywood films in particular. A lot of firsts in this series, I really appreciate that. And technically, by definition, it's not a Nollywood film, but I'ma just count it. Hello and welcome to my second film review video ever. This is part 2 of 6 in which I will be covering every film from Netflix series African Folktales Reimagined, a series where I explore the artistry of African films, all involving women as a protagonist apparently, which is something I didn't even realize upon first viewing, so that's dope. And something unique about this film out of the 3 I've watched so far is that it is entirely spoken in Hausa, a language spoken by many people of the northern half of Nigeria and many other places in the continent. An interesting narrative choice that is. Speaking of choice, I know, amazing transition. The theme of today's review and analysis is choice. And yeah, we're doing a weekly theme now. And to accompany the theme of choice, I want to ask you, the viewer, a question. I'd love to see it if you want to write it in the comments, but you can also not do that. On the theme of choice, the question I have is, what do you do when your back is against the wall? What reactions and thought processes do you have when you feel like you're in a situation that leaves you with little to no room to make a choice? And what were the consequences, good or bad, of the choice you did end up having to make? The film we will be reviewing today is centered around the theme of choice. From Nigerian director Korede Aziz, hello and welcome to Halima's Choice. Halima's Choice is a film about culture, self-discovery, and the ability to choose. Our main character, Halima, is about to be forced into an arranged marriage that she doesn't want to be a part of at all, with a very attractive man, but if he's not her cup of tea, that's okay. She's also very interested in the society in the movie called Napata. She ponders their existence a bit, and her mother is just not having that. So then she walks away from her African mother and ignores her. And I'm not African, but I have African friends, and I've been told this is a very bad idea. So anyways, her mother's just like, bye, bitch, and goes back to doing the thing she's doing. Then we learn from the local preacher. Is it called a preacher in a mosque? What do they call that? Anyways, we learn about Napata from him. Apparently 99% of the world's population, so 7.9 billion people, have opted to upload themselves into the African matrix. Now, I could explain in depth what Napata is, but saying it's the African matrix makes it a lot easier. Like, that's basically what it is to the T. But it's not to the T because it's not a trans metaphor. In fact, I don't think this film is a metaphor for anything in particular. I think its emphasis and purpose leans heavily towards the actual lessons you're meant to take from the story itself. This was my initial take, and I'm happy to say that after doing some research, that seems to be what Korede was going for. But more on that later. Following the explanation of what Napata is, we learn that the people in this village hate it. Like a lot. They are one of the 1% that rejected it after all. So while everyone is off in African VR chat, they rejected modernity and embraced tradition quite literally. And they think it's in opposition to God because it's humanity trying to imitate heaven. They oppose it for religious reasons, which I think is possibly intentional. Religion is something used as a vice to condemn people's choices in many cultures, especially African ones. Now, this is a very simplified view on a very complex issue. I'm not saying African culture is a problem or all religion is oppressive or anything like that. All I really am trying to say is I think that religion was used purposefully, but I may be wrong, and that's okay. I try not to sit here and explain every little concept to you all, because if I do that, the video is just not gonna end, and it's just better for cohesiveness. So next, Halima walks away all angry like from the village and happens to find this guy whose name is Omar, I think. So she approaches him, he wakes up, and I guess his iron deficiency or whatever makes him ask for 5 more minutes, and she goes and gets her father to let everyone know some guy with an iron deficiency appeared outside their home. He never explained his injury, so I'm assuming it was chronic iron deficiency and he went nappies and hit his head on a rock. They ask where he's from, and he says from Kogi, which is a region in central Nigeria. But dude's like,
no, I need to know exactly who I'm letting into my home.
And he's like, well, A, I can't tell you that or literally anything else about me, but I can tell you I hate them Napata niggas, on God. And he's like, oh shit, you gang? Come on in. So they go off and do bro stuff, I guess. Meanwhile, Halima is continuing to be forced into this marriage, and we get what is probably one of the most impactful scenes from this film, in my opinion. She speaks rudely to her mother out of frustration for the situation she's in and begins to cry. Her mother comforts her, knowing how she feels about the ordeal. And that's it. I found that really interesting. I've met a lot of people in life with pretty dire familial circumstances, and I don't know if I can explain this perfectly as someone who hasn't personally experienced it, but something that I've observed and learned from these people in controlling households is the silent comfort. I, being the abuser or someone that has any power in the situation, will comfort you, but that's it. I will not defend you. I will not attempt to change the circumstance. I will show you the bare minimum emotional support while you suffer, but you can't say, I was never there for you. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Her mother is a woman and therefore doesn't have the power necessary to elicit change, so her suffering in silence is suffering in solidarity. I think that's a fair criticism of my take. The women in this society are clearly mirrored off of real life societies where they are forced into marriages for financial or political gain, even on smaller scales. And as a mirror of those societies, misogyny as a whole is mirrored, thus meaning the women don't hold the power the men have. Don't get me wrong, this burden 100% falls on her father, as her father, but he consistently, quote unquote, fails to the point where we aren't rooting for him. He is the antagonist of the story, if we're being honest. We don't expect anything from him but to go against our protagonist's ideals, her ideals being simply having the ability to choose. So out of our 4 main characters, her mother is really the only character that it makes sense to root for in this context, and to think that she could do any good. So in terms of supporting characters, she's what Halima has. And despite knowing that, her mother doesn't try to speak up for her right to choose. Even knowing her concerns would likely be dismissed, the mere act of trying to give her daughter a voice and advocate for her right to choose would be enough to redeem her character for me. But for the entirety of the film, this is all she offers: silent comfort. Hey, I'm sorry you're being forced into marriage and you have no rights or autonomy. Here's a hug. And it's consistent through the whole film. I may be wrong or ignorant in this take, and I'm fully willing to admit that and debate, but that's what I got out of it.
Sunana Halima.
Umar, not Omar. So I was close. Low-key want to call him Dr. Umar now. Yeah, he's Dr. Umar. Sorry. Anyways, we get some awkward eye contact, and Halima's basically like, yo, I found your computer thing that proves everything you've told us is a lie. Do you want to come alone with me to a secluded cave where no one knows we'll be so we can talk? And he's like, sure. And okay, spoiler, obviously, because this is a review, but we later find out he was sent from Napata to purposely infiltrate the village and gather data on it. So him being unconscious and sickly was a ruse, in which case, why did he actually let the one thing that can identify him as Napata just like sit there fully observable by anyone that walked past? And why didn't he notice or care it was missing? This is actually a very big plot hole that kind of makes the whole story not make sense. That being said, I do need to cut some leeway to Miss Korede. I did research on her before this video, just as I did for Lukman Ali, and just like him, it seems she had a lot of difficulties filming, including weather, lack of resources. All the night scenes were filmed in one night, and generally she describes the process of creating this film as chaotic and very hard. It does get frustrating seeing all these African directors not being able to fully execute their ideas and visions. I could be writing a completely different review had these creators been given the ability to fully execute their idea. Yeah, I don't know. As a fellow artist and creator, I feel frustrated for them, but proud that they still work hard to get as close to their vision as possible. That being said, Dr. Umar flashing his disc thing could have just been poor writing. There's no way to know other than asking her, but it does heavily impact the story. Anyway, she confronts him about it, but unlike her conservative family and community, she's very curious. She wants to learn about Napata, so she asks, and he agrees to show her to the world of Napata. She awakens in a world ripe with color. Everywhere she looks, she sees vibrant flowers and people adorned in beautiful clothing, all having a good time in each other's company. Kids play and people sit and chat without a care in the world. It's what I imagine many people think of when they envision heaven. And before I continue, I gotta give props to the makeup and hair design team and the outfit design team. The makeup, the hair, the wardrobe, all the choices, they are beautiful. The scene is also color graded to perfection in my opinion. I really hate when films depict heaven as some sort of weird liminal space with white everywhere. It just sucks. If I went to heaven and that's what it looked like, I would be upset. I would leave. And if heaven exists, I'd always think it would look like this, colorful and nature filled. I know this isn't actually heaven, but it's Napata's attempt at a heaven on earth. So it's close enough. This woman is beautiful. I just wanted to say that. Anyways, I'm sorry. This is a beautiful scene. It's so wonderful. But the way this nigga is standing killed me when I first watched this. Next, we have another scene I think is simple, but so damn perfect. Dr. Umar offers her a garden egg, which is a type of fruit in Nigeria. She responds saying she doesn't like garden egg, to which he says, try this one. She notices how sweet it is, and he replies saying that's intentional. You can program it to taste however you want, to which she responds, the real garden egg tastes better. It's really the little things. Excellent writing. Magnifique. What a great way to highlight her preference for a grounded and lackluster reality to a romanticized fantasy. Great characterization. Anyways, he asks her what counts as real and they enter a philosophical debate of sorts. He brings her to, I suppose, a cold area of Napata. I know this was filmed in Nigeria, but wow. Is this what cold looks like to y'all? Maybe it's like an altitude thing, but I don't know. That looks nice. Anyways, next she gets possessed by the Lich.
Fall.
And we have a pretty creepy and well-made nightmare sequence that shows us the embodiment of her fears. She doesn't want this life. She does not want to be a housewife. She does not want to marry this very attractive man. And she does not want that choice taken away from her. So in a fit of anger, she throws the headpiece that got them into Napata on the ground. And I just found it so funny. Sorry, I love pointing out things that make me laugh. I don't know if this is typical for film reviews, but I don't care. He looked at her like, motherfucker, that was 6 months' salary you just threw into some pointy rocks. You couldn't just place it on the ground? Maybe angrily? Then he goes on a rant about original African people and he turns into Dr. Umar. I'm just kidding. He asks what she saw that scared her, and she looks at him like this, and he stops talking. Then, after a night of healthily processing her emotions, she decides to run away with this complete stranger who lied to her. She decides she's had a fucking enough, and she ain't getting married. So she sneaks to his house at night and throws acorns or something at him, which wakes up the other guy somehow, who's like, huh? What's going on? And he's like, nothing. I must ease myself, whatever that means. And he leaves the house to see her and she's like, run away with me. And he's like, I really would, but I got like a thing. And she's like, what thing? You've been here for 2 hours. And he's like, okay, you got me. I'm an AI. Surprise.
What the fuck? No!
He reveals his socket to her, and like I said earlier, he only came to gather data for Napata because ironically, to make it feel real, they need to collect data from the real world. And this next scene, I don't really like that much, I won't lie. How did they know they went missing? Why didn't she just run away before they got there? That was Halima's original plan, so why didn't she do that? Why didn't he just cover his socket back up when he saw the man approaching? Why? I have a lot of questions. Anyways, they beat the bricks out of old Dr. Umar for being one of them AI folk. And because she stays long enough to see it for some reason, I guess she feels guilty and is like, hey guys, stop that. And her father's reaction to that is basically, and how quickly that concern turns to anger when she says he didn't make her leave. It's scary, but it's real. He's not willing to listen to her, not willing to hear her out at all. He just murders her friend and leaves her a sobbing mess on the floor while they drag her away and force her to go marry this Dandali guy, or Danladi. He probably did all this stuff and then patted himself on the back for being a good father. He seems like the type. So she is in the depths of her depression after witnessing her friend's murder and realizing she is going to be forced into this marriage. But everyone around her is just like, now I run the game, got the whole world talking King Kunta. Everybody wanna cut the... Anyways, after that, we get another scene with her mother, and this is the last one with both of them on screen together. It almost made me cry, honestly, because it mirrors things I've seen in real life way too well. We know her mother doesn't think it's right despite not speaking up for it. We know her mother does what she can to avoid causing her daughter any pain. She thoroughly considers if her actions could end up hurting Halima. So to a degree, we can sympathize with the mother a lot, but she still comes up short. She didn't fight for her enough, and in the end ended up losing her because of it. The grief and guilt the mother must be feeling at this point is hammered home by the fast-paced, anxious music and phenomenal acting by Halima's mother. I think if she could go back, she would have supported her daughter's decision till the end if it meant she could go with her wherever she is now. Speaking of where she is now, she made it. Made it away from her father in the village at least. In the next scene, we see her appear in Napata talking to Dr. Umar's soul, I think. I don't know how that works, but he's there, and he tells her she can stay, to which I'm honestly not too sure I get the logistics of. If her physical body is still in the real world, and that's what it means to be uploaded, doesn't she still need like food and water and whatnot? Doesn't her body still have to stay alive? Or is this like the demo version where they get to try it before fully uploading themselves? I don't know, but I don't quite understand the logistics of the African matrix. Either way, he offers for her to stay and she declines. She gives her own reasonings, such as it not being real or morally right, but I have a feeling that's the least important part of the message. As I stated before, Korede Aziz hammered home the point magnificently. You understand in the end what it's about, her ability to choose. A hand in marriage was demanded of her, and a permanent oasis in Napata was offered to her. And in the end, she chose neither. In the end, she decided to walk her own path, wherever it takes her. And that's honestly not an ending I saw coming on my first watch, I won't lie. It might have been predictable to other people, but honestly, I saw her uploading her conscience. But it's perfect for the very loud feminist themes and messages pushed throughout this story about a woman's right to choose, and I absolutely love it. I think it's a great conclusion. I think Korede Aziz did the damn thing. I think she did the damn thing. She knew the message she wanted to convey with her story. She spent days at a time getting to know her actors as individuals, fought through rough climate and difficult equipment, and in the end, she absolutely delivered. I am very impressed, and I cannot wait to see more from her. Well, we did it. We're getting videos out semi-consistently. Thank you all so much for the support on the last video and this one, and I really hope you enjoyed. Join me next week or the week after for the third installment in this series where I will be reviewing Anyango and the Ogre, which might be my favorite of the three I've seen so far. And if you want more Brook content in the meantime, be sure to check out my gaming channel where I'm a lot more uncomfortable and unhinged. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful week.